Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SHEMAKERS Live. I am Shavonna William, your hostess and the founder and CEO of Heels and Helmets. This is the place where we have conversations to help women develop their playbooks to win in business and life. For more than 2 decades, I've worked in marketing communications in business, politics, and sports. 5 major sports leagues. Yes, I'm a veteran in this game, and I am helping you develop your winning game plan. Throughout my career, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of incredible people who are not only killing the game, but share my passion to help you succeed. That's what SHEMAKERS is all about, helping women succeed, sharing resources with one another to help us navigate business and tackle some of the things that are very unique to women. Who is a SHEMAKER? A SHEMAKER is anyone who is passionate about helping women succeed and talented. You are a SHEMAKER, and I am here to help you unleash your power, make big plays, get in the end zone, and win. Let's meet tonight's SHEMAKER coach. Jennell Lynch is the founder and CEO of Executive Doula Agency, where she helps women and businesses navigate the intersection between career, giving birth, and personal life. After 20 years as an executive working in politics and private equity, along with earning a master's degree in organizational management and marketing, Jennell has learned the granular details that can create a healthier workspace for working women. Throughout her career, she recognized that companies commonly lack the internal support, knowledge, and resources for working women who are expecting or already mothers. Jennell most recently served as Vice President of the National Association of Investment Companies, the NAIC, the largest network of diverse-owned private equity firms and hedge funds in the United States. It's comprised of more than 50 member firms representing more than $90 billion in assets under management. Focused on making an impact in the community, Jennell is involved on several boards, including Foundation for the Advancement of Midwifery, Board Secretary, USA Artistic Swimming, African American Teaching Fellows, Birth Sisters of Charlottesville, and the Public Education Foundation of Charlottesville. Everyone, I am so excited to have Jennell Lynch here with us this evening as we continue to celebrate Mother's Day and motherhood and all of the things that women tackle. I wanted Jennell to come on this show and talk about her journey, how she formed the Executive Doula Agency, and her tools for managing a family that includes her husband, as well as 4 little ones. Jennell is also a very good friend of mine. We go way back. I don't even want to say how far back because I would be telling on both of us, but we've known each other a very long time. You guys have heard my story about volunteering with the Urban League's Young Professional Group, the Thursday Network, and how I met a really good friend there who hired me when I was laid off for Steelcase, like that same day, to work in Senator Clinton's office. Well, this is that friend. SHEMAKERS and everyone watching tonight, please welcome my good friend and career executive, woman, mom, just community servant, everything, Jennell Lynch.
Hello.
Hello there, lady. How are you?
I am good. It's so good to see you and connect. Oh my gosh.
So good to see you. I feel like it's been just far too long, but seeing you makes me realize that we just take it for granted having social media.
I know.
It's like, but when have I really seen her? The last time that I saw her.
Exactly. I know you feel like you keep up with people because of social media, especially if you post a lot. It's one of the reasons I post a lot. But then it's like, I really haven't talked to her and seen her in forever.
Exactly. Forever. You know what does it for me? Seeing the kids. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like the last time I saw them, Jamez was Joey.
Right. Oh my goodness. Now, can you believe that the story you just told in that introduction of when we first connected, there were no children involved?
No children, right?
There was no children. I was like this single girl in the city, like doing a thing. And now I got kids going off to college. Like, what is happening?
About to do their thing.
Right.
Or telling you how to do your thing, huh?
Pretty much. That's what's happening right in here in my household.
Well, I want to get right to Executive Doula Agency, but I know that I can't because everyone else needs to hear your phenomenal story. So I'll start with that. Like you said, we met before there was a husband and 4 children. We were running around DC with a Thursday network.
Yes. I forgot all about the Thursday network, but it was like fabulous. Like,
it was, right?
Oh my goodness, the after hour, like little connections and the get ups and the get togethers. And I mean, really, that's how I met a lot of other young executives in DC because I'm not from DC. So that was like the way I really connected with other people.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Gosh. So where do you want me to start? How do you want me to, the career journey, want me to connect the dots?
Yes, why don't we start there from DC?
Okay, let's start there. So I'll go back. So first, my undergrad, I was actually a communications major. And while I was in college, I actually interned at the NFLPA during the summertime. And then I would go back to work during the Super Bowls. And it was like just one of the natural processes. If you intern there during the summer, they would have you come back for like, to work the parties and planning and all that kind of stuff. So of course, it was like a natural transition when I graduated to head to DC to work at the NFLPA. And they were doing a whole host of hiring of assistants for every single department. And I naturally landed in the communications department because that was my area of expertise. And so I was there really focused on the off the field initiatives with the players. So their foundations, what they were doing with their families, interviewing, writing stories. This actually ages me. I remember this is when Players Inc. created for the very first time a website dedicated to just all the players off the field initiatives. This is just crazy. Like,
because it's like a no-brainer now.
Right. Like you have
innovation then.
Yeah, they didn't have a website. You can just go on and see like events, programs, what the players are doing. I remember even starting like the first time like a contest around like quizzes and getting to know the players, and you could win a jersey. Oh my goodness, I'm really aging myself. So that was like my main role, traveling, talking to players, interviewing them, writing stories, that sort of thing. And then it's so interesting enough, I got a call from Capitol Hill from a senator's office. Strange enough, I had no idea who it was for. But because I'm from Virginia, I went to Norfolk State University. I'm from my family's from Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm thinking, it must be one of the senators from Virginia or something. And I don't even know how they actually got my name. So, but they were like, we would like for you to come in for an interview, like the next day. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, but you know what? Shoot, let me go shoot my shot. Like, and literally I was like, nothing on my resume speaks to politics. I never even thought about working in politics. Like it was not on my radar. Did an entire interview, still didn't know who I was interviewing for. And it was fast. It was like 30 minutes. And they were like, let's go introduce you to the senator. Like, we would like for you to meet her. They said her. And I was like, wait a minute. Virginia doesn't have a female. Something weird about this. Yeah. And so walked in the office. It was in the basement of the building. So they were like, we're just transitioning. We don't have a full office and everything yet. We're putting all our staff together. And at the time, it was Hillary Clinton. And I was just like, you think my eyes big now? I was like, could this be? Like, what is happening here? And she was just like, I'll never forget. She was like, oh, I know you're working over at the NFLPA. If you come over here, make sure you keep wearing that helmet because you're going to need it because it's tough and crazy over here. Like you're going to need to do all the block and tackling that you can. And so that's literally how I transitioned from sports to politics. And it come to find out after the fact, I had some friends and family who worked during the Clinton administration for a couple of the agencies, and they got wind that they were looking for a communications person and kind of threw my name in the hat and sent over my resume, literally without me knowing. So, that just goes to the point of, let people know what you're doing. Always, have your resume in the right hands of the right people because you just never know where it ends up at.
Yes. Well, my story ending up in the senator's office, you, but I share something similar. And I tell this story all the time for 2 reasons. One, to encourage people to not just join organizations like the Thursday Network, but get involved.
Yes.
Show your skill set, and you can also develop new skills. If you're interested in communications and you don't work in communications, you can join the PR committee for an organization like Thursday Network and learn. So
and you get to connect with other people that's in that field. And I remember now that you talk about it, I remember when I first laid eyes on you there, because you got up and you were speaking. You got up and was speaking about one of the committees. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Right. And that's how we connected. After the event, I walked up to you and we started talking. That's so true.
That is so true. And another point, like, dress for the part. Like, if I was there looking crazy, like about to go to the club,
I'm like, yeah,
not connected.
She's not ready.
So then I'll never forget that day. I called. It was a Friday, so it's time for us to think about, like you said, there was no husband and kids. So, we're about to plan happy hours or what we're doing for
all
the
of that.
And I was like, I got laid off today. You're like, thank you. I already know you can write. And it's so funny, Jennell, because both of us have similar experiences in that we were not like a lot of people in DC who moved to DC to get into politics and then coveted the opportunity to work with a senator like Senator Clinton. We were just like, oh, we can write.
What I always tell people, the busiest, hands down, the busiest communication shop on Capitol Hill at that time, because she was a first lady. So we were still handling all of that, like the inquiries for her being a first lady, now the senator of New York. And I'm Virginia, so now I have to have a New York mindset and wrap my head around everything that's happening in New York and then globally. So I had to have an intern that could translate. You knew this. I had to have an intern that could translate. I had an intern who just answered the phone because we were getting so many calls that it was just like, it was all like mind blowing. I tell people working there for a couple years felt like decades. It was constant. Like, you did not stop. You lived and breathed the news. Like,
yes, it was nonstop. And you remember when I started, it was 3 weeks after 9/11. And really the entire team was learning New York because she wasn't even from New York.
But it was, and after 9/11, it was even like tripled the amount of work, because we were from, we were just, the office that represented New York, and we started to have all these cases. And it was almost like people started doing multiple jobs.
Yeah.
Because you had to almost serve as a caseworker, as a communication person, as a public speaker. Like, it was so intense. I always joke and say, I remember days where I had on like the same blue dress and pearls for like 3 days. Like I would literally get home in time to like take it off and lay it out and make sure it was just neat, and get up and put it right back on with the same pearls I never took off. Like, that's how busy. And no one said anything. Everybody looked the same like every day.
Right. It was our norm. Only 8 months, like you've always told me. You're like, those 8 months, it was like 5 years though, Shavonna. And it was, for what I learned, oh my goodness, just an incredible experience.
I tell people it's a level of crisis communications that I could have never been taught. Never. Being a communications major, of course, I took 1 semester of a ethical like crisis communications class. Nothing that you learn in the classroom can prepare you for what you do on the scene of a true crisis where you have to handle that level of communications. It was literally like learn by fire.
Oh, definitely. So many things stand out for me between, of course, 9/11. And that, I think, was one of the reasons why you did have the opportunity.
Burning by fire. Like, it was not enough of, and we had a small team because she was a junior senator. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have as big of a staff and as robust budget as everybody else did. So it was like, you an intern? You need a job? Oh, girl, come out of office. I'm gonna get your badge. Like,
right. We had anthrax. And do you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I didn't read the book until years later, because remember, we had to just skim through it and flip through it to find pieces of it to prepare for media. So I didn't actually sit down and read that book until years later. I mean, like 2006, 2007.
Oh my goodness. I completely forgot about the whole anthrax terrorist situation, and taking like weeks and months to get mail, and the process. And by the time we got mail, it was like singed. It was so burnt from security, like process and everything. It was like, can you just fax this to me? So that's how old we are again.
Yes.
We were telling people to fax media stuff to us. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. And the way we did media briefs and press clips. Binders on top of binders, girl.
Oh, binders, like literally cutting and pasting and photocopying and putting it in binders and
right. And saying this, I feel like I'm talking about somebody who was working in press in the 50s. I'm like, no, that was my life, early 2000s.
Every day, like every morning, like every single morning. This is how I started my morning. So I had to be able to crack of dawn to get ahead of it, to put it together, to wrap my head around what was the media talking about today. So interesting enough, I would say working in politics, and I tell younger communication people this, is that if you ever have a chance to work on a campaign or work for a politician, even at the local level, it will prepare you for any level of corporate communications. Because in corporate communications, you have time to plan. You know, you have like weeks, you have like 2 weeks to write a press release, and you got to get approval and send it around to different people. Like, you have time to plan a press conference and a whole media day.
Exactly.
Where you have 30 minutes to pull it together to get in front of the media. So if you can do that in 30 minutes, it makes everything else seem like a breeze, easily. Oh my goodness. So many stories. Oh my goodness. I forgot about all this stuff.
I know, it's just all coming back. And when I think about it, I'm like, man, that really happened?
But you know, this is a good segue. This is a good segue to the next point, because working there is when I got pregnant, got married, had my first child, and Jamesh Jr., who's now 18, was the first baby. But like, I was the first person pregnant in the Senate on our team. So as you can imagine, like many women still are today, I was a nervous wreck. Like, oh my gosh, like, how do I do this job I've been doing where I feel like I'm working 24 hours a day to actually being a mother? And the only examples I had were people who were parents, but their children were older. Like, I think only one person may have had like a 5 or a 6-year-old who was already like in kindergarten or first grade, but nobody had a baby. So no one was leaving work and, you know, like real engineering. I was just like, how's this gonna work? And it was when I first learned, and I would say it propelled me to be and empower me to be who I am today, to have kids and have a career, because the staff, Senator Clinton at the time, was just like, your family comes first. Like, you can do this. You let us know what you need. You let us know how we can help and support you. And clearly was like, this job will be here. The issues of what we do, they're not going anywhere. But the time you spend with your baby, nurturing your family, that moves along and that progresses quickly. So you focus on that and just let us know how to work around that. And after I heard that, it was just like this weight, right? Just like, I can do this. And so it switched from me being worried about, you know, how I'm gonna be a working mom to, okay, the United States doesn't have a real paid maternity leave. So I have to finagle like this short-term disability they call FMLA. And so I went to like, how do I pay my student loans when I'm not getting 100%? To where I'm not getting 100% of my check. So my worries quickly shifted. But I tell people this story too. One day I may write a book, I don't know. But you know, they will continuously ask me like, Jennell, so what are you worried about? You okay? And I was like, crazy. I'm just worried about my student loans. Like, you know, they're like, wait a minute, let's figure this out. And let's actually figure this out for the entire staff. So it was literally the first time she figured out how to pay the minimum payments for everyone's student loan who was on her team and in the office at the time. And I was just like, wow. But it showed me you have to ask and you have to speak up for what your needs are, what you're stressed about, because there are people there to help. Like, people really want to help, but they don't know how to help if you don't, you know, speak up.
So true. Amen to that. You know what I remember? I remember when you first learned that you were expecting and talking about it. And then you just said, you know, Shavonna, I'm not stressing about this. I have too much family, too many people in my network, and Maz has a big family too. For me to be stressing about having a baby.
It was like one day I was stressing, next day I was like, I got time for this no more. Like that's too much.
It's too much to stress about that. I know way too many people.
It's gonna work out, right? And it did. It literally did with my family, my cousins, my sisters, the family and friends I actually had in DC and Northern Virginia. I mean, they were like on it. They were there at the drop of a dime. So yeah, it all worked out. It all worked out.
And the office was family too.
Oh my goodness, such a tight-knit family. They actually threw me a baby shower, my first baby shower there in the office. And I got all of this beautiful, like handmade stuff for Mez that I still have to this day. Aww. In a baby box that I may give him when he's like 40, when he's responsible.
You said May, so look, Mez, it's not confirmed yet.
It's not confirmed. And I even have like a picture of him with the senator, all the stuff that I'm gonna keep packaged together. But I was like, I'm not even gonna give it to him when he goes on his own. I'm gonna wait till he like way like up in age where I know he's gonna take care of it.
Right. Yeah, speaking of that, I was telling you earlier, like I'm so mad, things are in boxes and not out. I'm like, I can't find a picture of us with the senator. Look, even a NFLPA Playboy party from Super Bowl, I couldn't find it.
Or even at the Wizards. Like I remember going to a suite one time over at the Wizards game. Like it has to be pictures of us together. Somewhere in a box, like we said, I'm confident they're in a box. In a box. Well, okay, so I'll keep going. So, there had Mez, first child, working, and after 9/11, so it was probably a year after 9/11 or so when our director of communications, Jim, and a couple, like the entire team basically transitioned out, either to go back to school. Some people went to law school. Some people went to go work on a campaign. But everybody was gone. And I remember I was like the lone man standing like, wait a minute, what's going on? While new people was transitioning in. And so that was a point where I realized like, you know what, this is a lot. And I have a newborn. Like, let me find my original plan though was like, I need to take a couple months off, like what do I do next? Because right now my resume doesn't make sense. In my mind, it doesn't make sense because I got sports, politics, like it's not connecting other than my skill set of communications and marketing. So it's again, when I expressed this to the senator and our chief of staff, who was amazing. Oh my gosh, she's so amazing. They were like, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? We will call them. Who name the company and who do you want to work for? And I was like, what? Like, oh my God. And it happened. Like I literally did some research, named some companies, and my research was really around the best places for like mothers to work. More than, I was really looking for that versus the salary and the job role and things like that. And actually had some really good conversations, did some interviews, but landed on, okay, I really need to just take some time off. Like, I feel like I'm rushing. I'm just jumping from one thing to the next. I even had some interviews and talked to some members of the House on the other side of Capitol Hill from Virginia who were like, oh, absolutely. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, yeah, I've been like, I'm tired. Like, I definitely don't want to be on the Hill right now with a newborn. Right. So I was probably at home, I would say, for a good 2 weeks, just like decompressing, just being a mom. When I got a phone call from someone who ended up really being a true mentor, who told me about the startup company called DefyWire at the time. Yes. Yep. A woman-owned venture-backed technology mobile company. And she was just kind of looking for like a consultant. A jack of all trades. The office was literally like 8 miles from my house, which was another bonus. Because by that time I had moved out from DC to Virginia. Yeah. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is a good way to make some extra money while I'm trying to figure out my next step. I'm a consultant. I'm not a full-time employee. It was kind of like a jack of all trades for a startup company. So again, I was there probably 2 months, turned into a full-time job. I ended up being the director of communications and marketing. And through the life cycle of the company, I served in numerous roles, like leading the sales team. I sat on the board of directors with the other investors, listening to how they raise money. She actually raised 3 rounds of capital from VCs before spinning out and selling off the proprietary technology of the company. I oversaw operations. So it's one of those situations where it was an opportunity that I didn't understand the possibilities at the time, but I learned so much about business that I am now able to apply to myself being an entrepreneur, because I served in so many roles and I got to wear so many hats and hear so many conversations that otherwise, and back then I heard the struggles of a female raising capital, because she did it and how she had to do it, and coming back to the office and all the no's she got from men who were like, yeah, we'll invest in women. Like literally just said that, like,
forget the idea. We just don't invest in women.
Yeah, like, this is a great business model. We understand it, but it's founded by a woman. Like, we don't do that. Like,
oh my gosh, that's insane.
Like insane. So at the time, me being present in that moment, I really didn't understand how all my dots were connecting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now when I look back on all of this, I'm like,
God was in it.
It like the universe was plotting my story and pushing me along without me even knowing it. And so being a DefiWire, the gentleman, Joe Watson, who was phenomenal, who was my mentor for a long time, we still are connected, who introduced me to the CEO of DefiWire. When DefiWire was winding down because it had been sold, I'm looking for the next thing. And again, I was just like, by then I was on baby number 3. So, okay, so with each place, I had a child. Let's just say that. So at this point, the company's winding down, just had baby number 3. And you know, putting out my resume to a couple of people in my network, but still like, I want to make sure the move is right. I wasn't clear on how everything connected. Wasn't sure if I want to do another startup, go back to the DC scene, like, and my mentor at the time, Joe Watson, was actually the chairman of the board for the Marathon Club.
Yes.
So for those who are listening, the Marathon Club essentially was I said the child of NAIC. Marathon Club focused on entrepreneurs raising capital and helping them with access to capital, connecting them to investors. And at the time, they were looking for a vice president, just overall vice president, oversee events, programming, operations, all of that. And he said, Jennell, I think this would be a good segue because you have worked for an entrepreneur who raised capital, and you'll get a chance to apply all of the other skill set that you've learned. And again, I was like, investment, finance, like, I don't see it, but I'm gonna roll with it because again, I'm one of those people that jump on an opportunity because you just never know what happens. Right. And so ended up serving as the vice president of the Marathon Club, which at probably after 3 years absorbed into NAIC, the National Association of Investment Company, which had been around for a very long time, probably coming up on 50 plus years now. Okay. An organization that's been around for a long time that represents investors, private equity, and hedge funds, as you mentioned. And so I just kind of grew up through the ranks and ended up serving as the vice president of the NAIC and had another child. Had another, but at that point, you couldn't tell me I couldn't thrive in my career and have children. Like
what doing this?
What is it? What is you talking about? And so over the course of my career and those moments, I have always, as you can imagine, friends who also, you know, got married, had kids, would always reach out like, girl, like, how are you doing this? But because of the places and my network and my family and the people I was around, it never dawned on me that I couldn't do it. Right. Like I never had an experience or anyone push back to say, this is not possible. You can't keep working like this. But what I realized is that I set my own expectations. I set my own bar. So going in, people knew like my kids were a priority. My family was a priority. And it was so funny, but I always joke and say by the time I had Joey, number 4, I went to the board, you know, and I like happily went to the board. And this is like a board of mainly old men. It was like, I'm expecting a baby and I'm not taking short-term disability. I expect to get paid all of my salary, 100%. Like, and what happened? Like, okay. And it wasn't a question. It was like a statement. Like, I proved myself in my career. I've done my work. Here's what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And I'm going to come back and we'll be good.
Right.
But the build up to being able to do that with the confidence that I had was all of the other women that I had worked for, who I've seen who had children from my very first time being in Senator Clinton's office, who was like, your family comes first. You can have a career and you can do this. So it was definitely a build up to that point. But what I recognized that I always should have had that in me regardless. And so that's what I tell other women is like, make the ask. Make the statement. Like, go in with confidence. The one thing that's guaranteed in life is birth and death. We aren't going to stop giving birth. So why do we have to keep tiptoeing around? You know what I mean? Like, why do we keep tiptoeing around it? Like, and we aren't going to stop working. And as we've seen over the decades in many studies and reports, women are continuing to excel at multiple degrees. So we're not just getting our undergraduate degree. Women are getting their master's and multiple, the JDs, like everything. So that's not going to stop, which means we're not going to stop advancing our careers. So we shouldn't have to stop advancing it as mothers as well.
Definitely.
Yes.
When you said NAIC, I thought about that time because you were also working on your master's. And I remember
with the infant.
Yeah.
Y'all, you can go back to school and get your degree with children too.
Okay, you can do it. It's a juggle, but yes, women, you can do it and have it all.
Yes.
Now, there are times where between you and my sister, I have just felt lazy. I'm like, I'm over here in law school, pregnant. Jennell is like, I'm on the train, commuting to DC, working on my homework, gotta go home, feed the babies.
Girl, oh my gosh. Oh my, but you know what? I tell people, it's almost like you build up a tolerance, like alcohol. You know, when you built up a certain tolerance, you can go hard, you can drink. And it's the same thing with raising kids. You have built up a tolerance of like juggling certain things and reprioritizing and all of that to where it just comes so easily. So people outside looking in are like, what? Like this doesn't even, like, it doesn't even make sense. But I'll tell you this, I actually met a woman. This is when I had two kids and I was pregnant. I met a woman, a young Black woman who was a pharmaceutical rep. And I met her at a party. Her and her husband was a state trooper. They had 6 kids. She was a pharmaceutical rep, but she also had 2 other businesses. She was also an entrepreneur. One of her businesses she had to raise capital for, and the other one was like a home health care business that she ran. Oh gosh, that she ran. And I was just like, how, like, what? And we sat down and had a long conversation about how she manages her full-time career, because that's her base salary, health insurance, everything, but how that allowed her to start these other businesses and grow as an entrepreneur. And her husband being a state trooper, he was always gone. Like, you know, his shifts were weird. And he was like traveling the entire state of North Carolina. And so we talked a lot. So I tell people, like, surround yourself by people who've been there, done that. So she had clearly surpassed me in what I was doing and also had multiple degrees. And so at that point, my stress was like, what is my stress compared to like her stress? And she had no family around her. I remember she would tell me her mother would come in town, you know, every couple of months to like just help with the backlog of like laundry. Laundry, I think, is like, anybody who has a big family like laundry is like, oh my gosh, please help me. Her mom would come in, help her with laundry, maybe do stuff with the kids to give her a little break. But other than that, it was literally like her and her husband. So I always tell people, when you think you can't do something, think about somebody who's out there doing even more with less. And I always point to single mothers, because single mothers kick butt, because they don't even have the backup to say like, oh, I'm not cooking dinner tonight. Maybe he'll cook dinner. I got somebody to go pick up the kids. Right. Like, they don't have that option. It's literally all in, everything they're doing is in their head that they have to figure out and multitask on their own. Right. I always tell single women that I know, like, you need to put that on your resume, because that's a skill set like you can't even pay for. Like, you can't even get a degree in it. Like, you can't pay for your experience, and what you learn and what you go through, and your hustle and your grit is completely different.
Yes. Gosh. I'm thinking about even the mental health. Like, you don't have anyone to block for you.
Nope.
You know, like,
you're doing all the tackling
and shut the door. And Mez is gonna be like, don't bother mommy. Give mommy some time.
Right.
Single mom, or if Jamez is on vacation, you know, a weekend with the guys, I'm sure you missed that. Like, dang, he can't even block for me.
And see, that's right. And there's so many times he be like, y'all leave her alone. Like, let her do her work. Like, let's run out and get something to eat, or he'll cook. Jennell actually cooks. So I'm thankful for like those little bit of times, but think about people who don't have that, women who don't have that at all. Yeah. Like, that's a juggle. That's a real juggle. So hands down to all the single moms out there, because best believe I'm watching you and I know your hustle.
Right. We are cheering for you, girl.
Listen, I'm here. Call me. If I'm in town, I'll help you, but
that's what we're here for.
Listen, that's what we're here for. Ask for help. Ask for help.
Exactly. That is why I say over and over again, this is about helping women win in business and life. Like, we can't do just one.
No. And so
they're so much different than our male counterparts. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is why I essentially started Executive Doula. So when I was at NAIC, one of the initiatives I led over the course of like 5-6 years was a women in private equity initiative, where we focused on the pipeline of women into finance, which always needs to continue to grow, the area of retention, but then promotion, because we all know the more women that are at the top of finance who are allocating capital to other female entrepreneurs, the pool continues to grow. Well, no matter what event I had, all the different forums and discussions, and I would say they were really around tactical issues that were really finite around finance and the business. At the end of conversations, it always landed on motherhood. Like how women were having struggles navigating their firm, their workplace, advancing in the finance industry, and, potential solutions. And I mean, I even had conversations with women who were 7-8 months pregnant and they hadn't told anybody in their office. Babe, you about to have a whole baby and nobody at your job know you're about to leave for like 3-4 months. Wow. And these were senior women, like senior executives. And it was truly a fear of how they would be seen. They didn't want to be, they didn't want people to see them as they're taking a vacation or they'd be taking time off. They didn't want to lose out on potential deals that they had been working for a long time that was in their pipeline. Wow. And they didn't have a lot of people to look up to who had been there, done that. So when you're in an industry and you're in a firm where there are already not a lot of women, you may not have somebody to go to. And I tell people all the time, the firms with the best benefits, people may not be using those resources and benefits because they don't want to be seen as weak, or, like they're not doing their job because they're taking extra time off, or when I say I've heard a gamut of reasons, I'm just like, what? And so it's one of the reasons I became a doula. So I became a doula while I was at NAIC because I wanted women to be able to uncompartmentalize the conversation. I wanted to talk to them about the pregnancy, labor, postpartum, and then continue to talk to them about how they can thrive in their career. And so putting it all together. So I essentially was an executive doula before I actually created the actual business. Yeah. And after talking to women for so long, I was like, and actually kind of putting the feels out there, like, what do y'all think? Like, could this be a thing? I started to get a lot of good feedback, like, okay, how can you replicate yourself and how can you service an entire firm and not just an individual? So instead of being a B2C business model, how can you be a B2B? Because that's where the culture change needs to happen. Like, and I think because people, I've always worked with men in every industry my entire career. And I think people saw the way I would talk to men about birth and pregnancy just when I was in NAIC. So I'm always talking to men about like birth, just because I was always pregnant, or I was always having a child. So it was like a natural conversation, and they saw how comfortable I was doing it. They were like, you need to be talking to like the head of this and the head of that. Like, I need them to understand like some of the things you talk about. And it's essentially how Executive Doula Agency was born. So we've created not only the individual one-on-one service where, as a woman becomes pregnant or she just had a baby and she wants a doula, an executive doula, we also created a series of programming for all employees, not just those that are parents, but those who are thinking about becoming parents, those colleagues who need to understand the empathy that is lacked in leadership in certain work cultures and how they can help support, the parents, and how, it's all about allyship.
Yeah.
And people working together. I said it's an issue that we aren't going to solve by ourselves. It takes all of us. It takes men and women working together to really solve these issues.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was so shocked when I found out that you were actually a trained doula. So when I saw the name of the company, I thought it was clever. I'm marketing like communications. I thought, oh, this is really clever.
Right.
Helping someone or businesses birth ideas. That's what I was thinking. Or, manage the experience for working moms.
Right.
All that right, but did not know that you were actually bringing the skill set of a trained doula to this organization that you work as well.
Yes, and my partner is also, my partner, Lindsay Michaels, who's a co-founder, her background is also in finance, but she is a trained doula as well. And it's so funny, when we first were connected, actually from our seed investor connected us, and it's amazing. She was like, oh my gosh, I know this woman in finance who has a toddler, a baby at the time, her child was a baby, who is going through the most horrific situation in her workplace. And she is trying to look for the next thing, but she needs your help. So essentially, I was helping my now partner as an executive doula, but then she ended up transitioning out and becoming my partner in the company as well. Because she immediately understood the need, because she was going through exactly what she needed a solution for. So yeah, so we're both backgrounds in finance, but we are also doulas.
That is so funny. Girl, you have to tell me exactly what a doula is. Like, I have a very limited knowledge of doula. Like, I just think, oh, you help them with breathing and prepare them to actually go through the delivery. But reading your website, I'm like, oh, there's much more to this. So I actually started doing a little research, and I'm like, oh, there is much more to being a doula than I thought.
So it is. And we get this question all the time. Even in our pitch decks, we have a whole slide dedicated to, like, what is a regular doula? And then what we've coined an executive doula, to break it down. And there's actually visuals and pictures and everything, so people completely understand. So first and foremost, a doula does not deliver a baby. Let me say that, because I always get that question, like, are you like a midwife? Absolutely not. We are not we are not a midwife. We're not an OBGYN. Those are trained medical professionals who go to school for years to be able to medically support and deliver babies. That's completely over there. So don't even put us in that category. A doula is more of an educational and support person for multiple stages. You'll even find doulas who just focus on one stage of pregnancy or postpartum. There are people who do pregnancy and labor. So they're there from the beginning to educate the woman, prepare her for labor, what to expect, to ask questions if she has concerns that her doctor, somebody, you know how you need somebody to run stuff by. Run that person by, support their partner and their spouse. I always tell people, a lot of our job with one of my recent clients, I felt like I talked more to the husband than I almost did the wife, to get him ready so that he can really be hands-on and not be like standing in a corner looking scared like he said he was going to do. I was like, nah, this is a hands-on, like, physical situation. Like, you're going to be in it.
Right.
So getting the partner and the spouse ready, then doing labor, doulas are there. If the person wants the doula physically in labor. So being hands-on all throughout. And really the doula is the advocate for the mother. So they are almost like the voice in the ear for the mom of what's going on in labor and delivery. That second, so recently, I would say recently, I'm constantly listening to the nurse. When the doctor comes in, I'm listening. And when they walk out, I'm almost like reiterating, is everything going to plan? What the mom want? Are they trying to force her to do something that she didn't want to do? And helping her to understand what's about to happen. If there's a change in the situation, with a lot of times there are changes and during labor, like making sure the couple knows what's happening, being there for that. So we do the breathing stuff. We help them with the breathing, exercises, pain management, different things like that. And then postpartum, a doula checks in on the mom. So after they've had the baby, really one of my biggest things is checking for postpartum depression. Like, do I recognize signs and symptoms that are leading up to it? How is she taking care of herself? Because what I always tell people is once the baby's born, as you know, it's like Christmas, like the shiny packages and the tree, and everybody's like all excited about the mom too. And once the baby's born, it's like the present. And now everybody's excited about the present. And the tree is like, all right, put the tree away, like off to the side.
See you next year.
See you next year. And so and people are, and the baby's going to the pediatrician. Like every couple of weeks for shots, for checkups, but no one's checking on the mom at least once. You know, she goes back for a 6 weeks postpartum visit, but then after that, what? If she would had a healthy, delivery. So a doula, what most doulas, they'll see the mom once, maybe twice after delivery, whereas executive doula, our services cover a full year after she's had a baby, because what I know and what I recognize in working with and studied under some midwives is that anxiety really kicks in when you have to go back to work. Issues and mental health things start to set in when you have to disconnect, for working moms. Like, yeah, you had the baby, you've been at home, you're comfortable, and you got this new rhythm and this new schedule. All of that changes again when you have to go back to work. Now you have to put back on that career hat. And so that's one of Executive Doula's main focus, is helping you navigate that new path, like getting prepared for that transition and helping you all along the way as you re-enter the workforce and what that looks like.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And so unique and necessary.
Thank you. We're trying.
Is the service B2B now only, or?
So it's only B2B. It's only B2B. We always get this question, and we always have individuals come inbound. We have helped a couple of women on a one-on-one basis because we were already talking to their employer as potentially covering this as a health and wellness service or potentially wrapping it into their benefits. So we have helped some people one-on-one to kind of try out the service to see what it's about. But it's a B2B, and it's a B2B on purpose. I keep getting people come inbound like, Jennell, you should do B2C, like, you would, grow, scale faster. But I truly believe if companies want to retain top female talent,
I agree,
they will pay for the service. They will add a new tool and resource to their parent toolkit, to their benefits, to their health and wellness programs that is hands-on. One of the things I know from working across different industries and from talking to other women is that people have, benefits where they have resources where you have to proactively engage with the resource. You have to go look it up. If something is wrong with you, you have to call and say something is wrong. Mm-hmm. This is a proactive service. I'm not waiting on someone to come and tell me they have a problem. I'm not waiting on you to tell me what you're navigating in the workplace. I'm asking the questions. I'm getting ahead of it. I'm implementing programs to educate people beforehand. And I feel like that's what's missing. We need the proactive hands-on approach, because being a mother and having a baby is a hands-on in-person situation. It's not an app that you can just go to and finagle your way through and find a resource and engage yourself. Especially, and you think about this too, we both know so many type A women who are used to working a certain way, used to a lifestyle of a certain way. And when you have a child, you kind of have to open up a little bit and say when you need help. But it's hard for women to do that. And it's one of the things I look for, is that I'm going to tell you what you need before you tell me you need help. I'm going to give you a checklist of the things, and we're going to talk through this in one of our means of what I think you possibly going to need help with. Yeah. So we try to help women really get ahead of it before the stress turns to anxiety, the anxiety turns to depression. Mm-hmm. Like, we try to get to it at the root before it grows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There is also a lot of pressure on women to get it right. When you are the only woman in the boardroom, you are constantly thinking about every move, every email, going back to what you said about women being nervous to even say that they were pregnant.
Like, it's so funny. I have so many women, even one of my recent labors, and she may be listening, watching, this is so funny, that women have a hard time disconnecting, even when they're in labor. You will not believe how many women, even investors, who have literally told me they've been on conference calls on the phone in labor and delivery, like talking to people at the office, contractions like 4 minutes apart, and they're still working. And I have literally said, we are gonna hang up and put the phone down. Like, it's a thing. And I've had this conversation with healthcare professionals as well, who recognize this. Like, women come in labor and delivery, and those who are working moms who have some type of executive role, they're managing people, they're still checking emails. They're telling their husband, like, oh, can you respond? I'm gonna dictate this to you. And, and that's not their job to tell them to stop. So I had a nurse who actually saw me telling somebody to stop and was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you can get all in the person's business that we can't get in. That's exactly what an executive doula does. Because what I want women to understand, it's a moment in a time that you cannot get back.
Yeah.
The work is going to be there. Like, the emails aren't going to go anywhere. And people know you're in labor. So be in that moment, like, be present, take advantage of that time while you can, because it's not every day in your life. You can be like, I'm having a baby.
Right.
I'm on maternity leave. You can't say that every day. So people won't have that empathy and, understanding for you not doing something at work all the time. So take advantage of it, like, be present and be in the moment, because that time goes by so fast.
So fast.
Yeah.
And if you're at an organization that does not understand that, and the expectation is that you are working through delivery, then you do not need to be there.
You will not believe how many organizations do not understand that. I have had some Fortune 50 company folks who have literally said, my boss thought I would be back like in a couple of days, as if I was having like outpatient knee surgery, not having a baby. And these will be people who actually have children themselves. That's always the strange part to me, is you think you have a supervisor or a boss or someone who has a family. They know what it's like. They've been through it. No,
Not so much.
Not so much. They still have a certain level of unconscious biases that have to be checked.
Mm-hmm.
And our doulas actually go through an entire training around that, workplace biases, and how to help their individual clients navigate that. Because you still have to check people. Like,
so you got to check them.
I'm at a point in my life and at an age in my career, I just say stuff what I feel like. So much work to be done. The Kaufman Foundation actually came out with this year. I was so happy to see, because there's also not enough research around, I would say, the penalty of a working mother. I call it like the wage penalty of being a working mother, and the impact and the loss to the economy when women tap out. And it's one of the things I speak to a lot. And the Kaufman Foundation actually just came out with a really great report. If people are interested in it, I would say check out. It came out in January, but it's just really starting to get leverage and legs, and it's getting spread around the economic impact of working mothers and the penalty the economy faces when they do leave. And so my whole pitch to businesses is that if you truly care about your bottom line and the investment you've already made in female employees, especially your pipeline, because I will say a lot of companies have phenomenal pipeline programs and internship programs, which is great. And we need that to continue to stay and continue to grow. But what do you do once they decide to have children, once they become mothers? What are your retention resources? What are your tools around that? Like, what are you doing there? And it needs to be another hands-on approach, or else it's like all the investments you've made in the beginning of the career is null and void. There's no return on investment.
Yeah. And I know when you make that business case, then antennas go up.
I can't always talk about this is the right thing to do and it's the good thing to do. I have to prove the business case of why you should be doing this and how this actually impacts your bottom line at the end of the day. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're speaking to business people who have ultimately one KPI.
That's it.
Revenue.
That's it. And that's what they care about. They want to know the number, how it affects them. And so my whole diversity, being very inclusive, supporting women's speech, like I have to tailor that accordingly depending on who I'm talking to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's been the biggest challenge or main objection as you're having conversations and explaining Executive Doula Agency?
Yep. So I would say either they're ready for it or they're not. So companies who have, I would always say the companies in our pipeline are those who have been public about supporting women, who have talked about retention, who already have certain programs in place. So they have a lactation room in the office. Mm-hmm. You know, they have certain tools and resources that they are already talking about, or they've had so many problems that they're like, oh, we got to do something. Like, this is hurting us. And I think COVID has actually exposed the cracks in a lot of people's foundation, especially for very large companies. Yeah. Having women to work virtually at home with their kids who are also doing virtual schooling, they're seeing how women work. They're seeing their responsibilities and what they have to do. So I would say initially at the onset of COVID and just starting a business like at the end of 2019, going into a pandemic, I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? But after a while, it kind of spoke to the need that some companies, we literally just did educational sessions around the mental load of motherhood, around how to help them navigate, you know, the workplace, even though they're virtually and they're at home, supplying companies with resources, customized resources, depending on their locality for children of all ages. So I think it's either people who get it, they know they need it, and if they want to retain women, or there are still some companies that are so far off that they're still trying to figure out, you know, oh, she gonna come back to work and breastfeed? Yes, she is. Like, why are we talking about this?
You're like, we're having this conversation again.
So now I have a whole slide around the importance of having like a lactation room and being supportive doing, you know, women that are breastfeeding. I think I did a post one day about that. And it was almost like an angry post. Like I did like 3 bullets and it was real angry and out of character, but it was needed because I had just had a call with somebody who couldn't comprehend like how to support a breastfeeding woman at work. Like, buy her some water. Have some water. Have a room where she can pump with a refrigerator. It does not have windows with no, like literally this is stuff like, don't give her a lactation room that has a big window in the city with no blinds.
The basics.
Like basics, it's not even complicated. Mm-hmm. And I always say that, like, it's simple solutions that we have overlooked because life has gotten so complicated, but we need to take some things back to the basics.
In addition to that, we know who controls the boardroom. These are things that are not important to them or have not been important to them. So they're not thinking about it.
And when they formed, and this is why I talk about culture so much, like workplace culture, because what we do know is when these organizations were started, these things were not top of mind. They didn't build the culture around us. It wasn't built for women, like, and especially, you know, the thought was we'll have an assistant, our marketing person, but not women with P&L responsibilities who do want to stay engaged, who want to, you know, thrive in the, you know, still, even though, you know, everybody does, the assistant and the marketing person, but women who are truly driving revenue at the end of the day, like, yes, they want to be connected. They want to stay engaged. You need to support them and don't just have one. Like,
right.
I get upset about that too. Like, they're like, oh, we have one woman you can talk to. You only have one? Okay, we need to, that's another issue. I have other resources that can help you with that too, but
right.
Yeah, we got a long way to go.
You know, I am fascinated by the work, you know, empowering women in general is also a passion of mine. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about entertainment industry because I see 2 opportunities. One, of course, it's the staff and the culture for the organization, right. But it's also our consumers. That fan experience. I mean, I am working on some things to improve that experience for moms on game day. Well, we wonder why we see more women at Major League Baseball games than the NFL games. Mm-hmm. Well, Major League Baseball, they host their events in a park. They can bring food. It's comfortable. They have full nurseries. NFL stadiums, you're lucky if you find a closet. You can sneak away.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so True. And it's so funny, even that you mentioned that. So the entertainment industry is a whole situation I've been talking to people about, from the actual celebrities and artists themselves to fans and consumers. I have had some conversations with investors who focus on that space. So but even as simple, when you talk about the experience as stores. So I used to always talk about when my children were little and I would have to go shopping, I would go to Nordstrom's. Mm-hmm. Nordstrom's was built with mothers in mind. They have the best restrooms, nursing rooms, changing areas. And my husband would think I was crazy because even if we weren't going to Nordstrom's, I would park at Nordstrom's. Because I already knew I'm going to have to change a diaper, somebody's potty training. Like, they had cleaning stuff and sanitizing stuff way ahead before pre-COVID. And it was just the smell was right. I think I talked to you before about my sense of smell is super strong. Right. And so the whole experience made it comfortable for me as a mother to do what I needed to do and made it an enjoyable experience. But at the same time, it took care of like the basic needs. And it's so many places who need to think like that at the conception of things and not make it an afterthought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think COVID opened up the eyes of a lot of men? I asked the question, Jennell, because with some of my colleagues, they, were really candid and said like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what was going on. It was like, I've been a 4-hour dad and now that I've been a 13-hour dad, oh, this shit is real.
100%. We actually did a session for a tech company. So already 80% of the employees were men. Mm-hmm. And the session was around virtual learning, really. How to manage virtual learning because so many people were working at home with their children already, at home with them.
Right.
Most of the people participating in the session were actually men. Like, help me, help us over here. Like, and it was so amazing because I guess before they hadn't been that engaged in what was going on at home and the whole education process and everything that most women are like thinking about. But even simple stuff as, oh my gosh, how do I keep my child like at the computer? I don't even know what grade to make it. I mean, it was like basic stuff, but it just showed you that COVID really, the ceiling dropped on them, like fast and hard, like they were learning by fire. So I would say absolutely yes. And this is interesting. So today I didn't even make the connection. Today we actually launched a His Birth Stories campaign. So for those that are out there, follow Executive Doula on Instagram. I've also been sharing it under my personal account on Facebook, but hearing stories from a men's perspective. And so we kicked it off today with my husband, Jennell Lynch, and one of his stories that I completely forgot about. And then we'll just be talking to working dads all throughout the month of June as we lead into, Father's Day and past Father's Day. Because what's interesting, and even before I started Executive Doula, I mentioned before, I always talk to men about, being a dad and their stories. And they were so factual. Because if you think about it, the woman is in labor, like she's going through it. Like she's going through the process, super stressed, like a lot is happening. Whereas the men almost have the even keel mind. His body is not going through it. So he's watching and observing and witnessing and taking it all in a different way. So I always like to hear a man's story and then actually hear the wife's story. And the men have stuff down to a science because they were witnessing it from a different perspective. So we've asked men questions to really pull out those stories and hear what they have to say and want to know their perspective. And it's what I always want to promote men being fathers and what they're going through as working dads as well, because I believe to truly solve the issues is allyship. Like we have to work together. Yeah. We have to listen to each other. We got to talk about it. Like me, whenever I'm on panels or in rooms where it's just women and it's us talking, before I even start, I'm like, who here is writing the check? Who here has P&L responsibility? Because me talking to us about our issues may not help us. We need to talk to the people that should be sitting in the room that's not in the room. That's who I need to get involved in the conversation.
Exactly. The decision makers.
Yep, the decision makers. Yep. So who in the room is a decision maker? That's who I'm directed.
Where you at?
Where you at? Raise your hand because that's who I'm talking to tonight.
Well, in your first year and a half, what has been most surprising?
How many people are still struggling?
Hmm.
In 2021, how many workplaces truly don't understand the moment of motherhood and having a baby, what it is and what it means?
Yeah.
Where they're still talking about we need to close the gender gap. You're not really trying to close the gender gap. Like, you have a pipeline in process, but you're not retaining your pipeline. I'm still amazed in 2021, we're still fighting this. We're still fighting offering resources and real support tools to support women in the workplace. I think that's most shocking to me. What I am happy about, though, is that there are, and because I think I'm in it and I'm in the industry now, I've seen new businesses and resources and solutions popping up, both platforms and technical apps and things, also hands-on support. And there's more conversation around it. Yeah. But the challenge is just every day it's hard for me just to wrap my head around, like, we still, like, needle not moving fast enough for me. And I need to move. I have 2 daughters. Like, I needed to move faster, you know?
Right. In starting this, what's one thing you wish that you had known prior to launch?
Let's see. I knew it was going to be hard. I will say that. I know entrepreneurship is hard in itself. So I was prepared for that roller coaster ride. What I wasn't prepared for is actually, and I should have, because I helped entrepreneurs raise capital, was me actually raising capital in all of the no's. But what I've learned is the no's are actually a good thing, because the more no's you get, the quicker you get them, the quicker you get to your yeses. Mm-hmm. And that is very true. It's almost like, I tell people, it's a numbers game. And I had heard that before, and I heard it from investors. But me being in their shoes now, I completely understand. It's a numbers game. You just got to get to the right person who completely understands the business and understands what you're looking for. I would say that's the part I wasn't prepared for, and has been the one thing that, like, keeps me up at night is, like, who I'm pitching tomorrow, who I'm talking to tomorrow, whether it's a potential client or it's a potential investor. That's probably what keeps me up at night, is telling the story to the right person. Is it a yes or a no? Like, hurry up, tell me, like, I gotta get to that.
Well, if that keeps you up at night, what allows you to sleep like a baby?
That I am helping women. That I am, even with this conversation, I have the opportunity to do more of this, to be on podcasts, to talk to women one-on-one in the workplace. I can't tell you, on a daily basis, I have so many women who text me, who DM me, who are sending me messages like, girl, this is what I'm going through. Like, what can I do? And so just to have the time and the platform and the opportunity to help solve those solutions, to see women connect their own dots and continue to have children and thrive as a family, it makes me happy. Like, that allows me to sleep at night.
You know, earlier I retold the story of what you said when you were pregnant with Lil Mez. Mm-hmm. You're like, I can't be stressing about this. You encourage young moms now who are facing some of those fears.
So one, I share my stories, and I connect them with other women who are in their shoes, maybe in their industry, to also share their stories. I think it's one of the biggest things that women can do, and even share the scary parts. Mm-hmm. Don't fluff it and make it all beautiful. Like I tell people, when you read my bio, it ain't the background. Like, it's not the hard conversations where I had to take out my ponytail, take off my earrings. Like, I shared that part. You know, I share the tough parts of it, even the relationship. I talk about my marriage. Yeah. I talk about how navigating a relationship and building upon that with children, and him managing his own career and traveling, like how that works. And I think when more women open up and uncompartmentalize their lives, it only helps other women. And we just need to do more of that.
What are some things women can do to champion this type of work in their organization? So the company doesn't have Executive Doula Agency working with them yet, but how can women ignite that conversation?
So I would say first thing is talk about it. Openly have the conversation, but also talk to men about it. Talk to the decision makers. Say, for example, it would be great now that we're hiring, we're bringing in these entry level people, or we're looking to hire more women. It would be great if we actually offered more resources. It would be great if we created a wellness program. A lot of our services in every company is different, whether they try to work it in through benefits or they work it in as just a program, a flat fee. We allow people to do that as well. But talk to the decision makers about it. Don't just talk to HR about it. Because what I do know about a lot of HR functionality is that they're almost like the broker. They're the broker. They're gathering all of the options. They're the knowledge base, the vault of what you have access to. But you also need to talk to the people that are making the decisions for HR if they aren't the true decision makers. So be vocal about it. If you're having a personal issue about it, find the right person you can talk to about it internally and let them know there are resources and options out there. We don't have to just keep functioning like this. There are people who want to support us. Yeah.
I cannot believe that we are already at time. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. We could talk for like hours. It's so much to cover. So much to cover.
I mean, when we think about everything that we discussed this evening, I'm like, we need to do another show to have a conversation about finances and getting investors to invest in you.
Yes.
And what that particular journey is like. And like you said, getting over the no's, that's huge. I mean, we see so many women starting businesses, but we also see that women do not stay in business as long as male entrepreneurs. And there are so many reasons why, between the investment, the time, managing family and career, all of that things contribute to what we see in the gender gap.
Yep. It's so much. And I think women entrepreneurs are so creative too. I've seen so many phenomenal ideas, but the access to capital and the different types. So I would also say that people need to understand the different types of capital that are out there for them. And whether it's a path through an incubator program or crowdfunding or, seed or angel platforms, like it's so many options out there, but people need to really understand what they have access to and how to tell their story. I would say that's the biggest thing, is to learn. You have to be so confident in your story that when you tell it, it's like, dang, I need that. That's amazing. But you can't.
I need that from her.
I need that from her. Like, I don't even know how it worked, but it sounds great. That's how good the story needs to be. And that's one thing I learned from other female successful entrepreneurs who have been around for a long time. And they continue to recreate the story as needed, how they pitch it, how they tell it, how they sell the business. So I think that's something that's important too, that women need to understand.
Yeah. Well, with that, what is the most essential note our listeners this evening need to include in their playbooks to win in business and life?
Oh, do not be afraid to ask for help. It's one thing that women do not do enough of. And whether it's in the office, personal life, children involved, whatever it is, don't just sit in fear. You don't even give yourself so many women don't even give themselves the opportunity to fail because you never ask, you never try. So ask for the help. Open your mouth, reach out. People actually want to help. People are out there to help. There are resources, but just ask for help.
Pays to be a little vulnerable.
It does. It absolutely does.
It does. Well, I can't let you go without your 3 sentences.
Uh-oh. I'm scared.
Okay. The video game that I will kick my kids' butt in is this.
Oh my goodness. Pac-Man.
Yes, I like it. They don't know about Pac-Man.
They will be like, Pac what? I was gonna say Mario Kart, but they have that now, and they're a little bit more better than me on that.
Right. Okay. Next one is, when I put my red lip on, it means that
it is time for business.
Time for business.
Yes. When I put my pink lip on, it's date night. Red lip.
Red is business. when I am watching little Joey at soccer practice and you see me just bopping in the car, I'm jamming too.
Ooh, trap music. Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Well, as you said, before there was the husband and the kids.
It was a Thursday night that works.
It was the Friday happy hour.
Right.
Saturday and Sunday. Oh, you know, it was good for
Easter market. I always say like Saturday, I would, recover, be at Easter market, get my food, doing a little shopping.
On the mall, walk type of day. Yeah, exactly. Too funny. Well, thank you for coming on this evening. It was so good to see you. No, I can't wait until we can do this in person.
No, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. A nice backdrop in DC. Go back to our old stomping ground.
Yes.
More production.
I'm ready. You let me know. Look, after this starts to settle down, the whole COVID and pandemic thing, we're gonna make it a date. We
are going to. Well, have a wonderful evening. Tell Mez hello. Hug all the kids. You know, I'm like the crazy aunt friend now. You were younger, your mother, your dad, they had these friends who were right. You're like, I don't even know you. I've seen you like 3 times, and somehow you know my whole life. Exactly. It's like I don't even know her. Right. Like, why is she so excited about my graduation? Look, little G Mez is going through that now. People send him messages on Instagram that he's like, who is this person? And why? This was good. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me. Your sister and your mom as well. I will. And you do the same. Oh my goodness, please. I will. All right. Oh my gosh, that was so good to catch up with Jennell. I hope you all had fun listening to us not only talk about business, but just reminisce and catch up. She is definitely one of my sister friends. So as we wrap up the month of May celebrating women, I can't believe we're already at the end of the month, but next week we're going to close out with Nikki Glenn. Nikki Glenn is a senior communications officer in the U.S. Army, and she's also done communications in sports in the NFL as well as in Major League Soccer. So save the date to join me for my conversation with Nikki Glenn. Remember, everyone, Wednesday is not the only day that you can connect with Heels and Helmets and SHEMAKERS. We are wherever you are. So connect with us at Heels and Helmets on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I got several good gems tonight, as I always do, catching up with Jennell. I hope you all did as well. Please share on Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook, what you learned tonight and what your favorite part of the show was. Until next week, remember, you are a SHEMAKER, and I am here to help you unleash your power, make big plays, get in the end zone, and win. Have a good night.